welcome to Cashflow Savannah podcast. Chandler and I have a very special guest, and we're doing something we've never done. We're interviewing our very special favorite of all time guest, Jabbar Adesada, and we're hanging out right here at my kitchen table. It's such an honor to have you, Jabbar. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. We've spent many hours here together, but never in like a formal, setting. And I love when I kept saying, Jabbar, come on the podcast. And he said, I want to come in person. And I just think this is such a great, venue to do it. So I want to talk just really quick for our audience about the day that you and Chandler met, because Chandler came to work at Sid was here and he was 25. And, I was like, you got to buy real estate. You got to be an investor and all the things he wanted as well. It's not like I was just like forcing that. But a few months in, he said, I'm young. I'm 25. I don't have a ton of money. Excuse, right? And I said, you need to meet my friend Jabbar Adesada, who is at the time 21. We met, I think, when you were 19. And so we took you to lunch. And have you even been the same since that lunch, Chandler?
No, not at all. I don't have any excuses anymore. Like, there's none.
You walked out of that restaurant and you said it to me. You said, I don't have any more excuses.
Can't make them. So.
Yeah. We love you, Jabbar. Your family, I expect you here every night for dinner right here. But we really want to get to know you from when, back in the day, like, how many silver spoons were you born with in your mouth? Was it 4, 12? Did you have a leer?
So actually I'm the royal prince of all of Africa.
Uh-huh.
So that's how, no, I'm just joking. So I grew up in a pretty rough, childhood, household-wise. I had my parents separated when I was 3 years old. So that was a nasty divorce. And then I was actually abused from the age of probably 3 until I was 15. So I was 15. I actually got pulled away from my house by Child Protective Services. I didn't have a silver spoon.
None.
I barely even had food. I would go to school with bread and water, and kids would make fun of me all the time for why are you only eating bread and water every day at school and things like that. And it was not a woe is me moment. It just really gave me this relationship with money, whereas I will never growing up do things like this, have to be in a place of lack due to lack of resources. I always wanted abundance. So just from a very young age for me, I knew that I wanted to have an abundance of wealth, just because the feeling of having a lack for bare minimum things like food traumatized me.
I can't imagine. When you were that young, what did you wish for the most? What was the one thing that you would go to school and see other kids with X or Y? What was the one thing that you used to kind of zone in on that you wanted?
I mean, it changed over the years, but it sounds super cliche, but it's food. I just wouldn't, I hate, even to this day, I don't like putting up with not food that I don't like. I don't like having, if I can help it, I'd rather consume something that is tasty or makes me feel good. But then, I remember vividly when I was young, I was that kid that would ask people for $1. I was begging. Mm-hmm. Can I get $1 so I can go get something from the vending machine, from the snack box? I would literally be I'd do anything for food. I used to steal money from my piggy bank, from things quarters and whatnot, and I'd take it to school and I'd get in trouble because they'd be why are you taking money from your college funds to go buy snacks, and things like that. And these are quarters that I got for something, or relatives gave me maybe, or I found on the floor that instead of me saving up regular kids to buy a toy or something, I'm literally saving it up so I could go to the snack box instead of eating bread and water every day. So that was one thing. And then I think I also clothes, then it became clothes. I had different levels, right? So when I was in middle school, all of a sudden that's the age where having holes in your shoes and having the Payless brand is not okay. It's not acceptable. If you guys don't know, middle schoolers are cruel, man. I remember I had never gotten a haircut from a barber before. So my parents, my grandfather used to cut my head bald. So I'd have a bald haircut going to school. And I always get bullied. People used to call me things like skin cancer boy, leukemia man, Samuel L. Jackson, Caillou, Lil Bill, all of them, ashy kneecap.
Brutal.
Not you.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
no.
and I used to have like holes in my shoes. I used to wear like my uncle's shoes, and I was like a size 7 at the time. I was wearing like a size 11 shoe. I remember one time I went to school with like duct tape wrapped around my shoe just because I was like, because they were Nikes, you know? So I was like, oh, they're not the Payless brand, they're Nikes, but I have duct tape wrapped around it. So like then like shoes and clothes became like that thing that I wanted the most. And then it was always food. I'd say at that time it was just like food and then clothes, like better like apparel. If I can remember correctly, those are like the two biggest things that like I like really wanted at that point.
So like, were you one of those high school kids that like became some sort of businessman in high school, like trying to sell something?
No, man. No? Actually, so I don't know if I've ever told you guys this. I was I was an entrepreneur. So okay. I would attach myself to the kids who did have things going on like that, and I'd work for them for money because like I grew up in like a household where I wasn't allowed to do entrepreneurship. So you guys know like the chocolate sales, the world best chocolate sales. I was never allowed to participate in those things, even though like there's no cost to entry to do a lot of times. Like for some reason in my household, like that was just forbidden. Like it was seen as bad to be selling things to people. So I was never allowed to do it growing up. So I never like was one of those kids who like was hustling and had the lemonade stand. I was not allowed to participate in entrepreneurship. It was like just something that wasn't okay in my household. So what I remember in 9th grade, I did this kid, he would go to Costco and he'd buy a bulk pack of like candies, like Twizzlers, chocolate, honey buns and things like that. And so I attached myself to him. I was like, hey man, like, can I sell some of these for you and get a cut? So I was one of his runners. And so what would happen was at first I would sell a few pieces of candy and then I would use my cut that you give me and I would use my cut to buy my own product because I was hungry. Yeah. And so I'd eat my own product. And then I got to a little bit of debt with him because I like ran out of money, but I was still hungry. So then I was like, well, I have these chocolates in here. So I'd eat the chocolate that he gave me. And then I remember also, this one's even worse. My next door neighbor, his family, like they were like the kings of the neighborhood, sort of. It wasn't an HOA or anything, but like his family, like they just organized all the events and whatnot. And like just anything to do with our neighborhood, like his family was that family in our neighborhood. And so I remember he was like the mail person. So you know what this guy did? He was making passive income off of me, man. He would get like, let's say $50 a month to deliver the mail. And that was like a 90 to 2 hour job. And he would pay me $5 a month. And I'd have to do it every week. So every Friday or every Thursday night, I would deliver the mail for the entire neighborhood for $5 a month.
Wow.
And then on top of that, and it was $5 a month in snacks every time. I could go in his house for snacks. And then sometimes they would feed me. And so I did it for that reason, because the snacks were more valuable to me than $5. So I'd spend the $5 in a day on food. But like that was my only source of income. It was between like the entrepreneur snacks that I ate like from that kid, and then doing the mail. And like that was, I would get snacks with that, but then also like I would use that $5 to spend it on food. Have I ever told you guys that?
No.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever told anybody that. Yeah, it's like a distant memory.
I can't picture you being that bad with money.
Yeah, it was terrible.
But I also can't picture you being that hungry. Like that hurts me to know that you were so hungry that any penny you made was going to food.
Straight to food. It was food and then like clothes. Yeah. Food and clothes. Because I remember when I made how else did I make money? Like little things, like, you know, doing people's homework for them, or like small, like, you know, whatever. Yeah, anything small. Oh, snow. It used to snow where I live. And I made a good amount of money doing that, like shoveling the snow with that same mailman guy. He was still making passive income off of me, but this time, like, if he was getting like $200 for a driveway, he was paying me $50. which I was rich. $50 is a lot of money. So I'd take all that money during the winter, and then I'd use a lot of it to buy food, but then I'd use a lot of it to buy like clothes from like H&M and things like that. So it was like food and clothes for a long time.
Wow.
So I want to ask, and I think we've had this conversation before on the phone. I was kind of like, because a lot of kids will just straight up get the victim mindset and just kind of keep going downhill and won't come out of it. Whereas you were like the complete opposite. And I was like, why is everybody not like that? You've done it. And I was kind of like, why can't everybody be like that? And you had a pretty good answer for it. But I'm trying to think of what you said about it.
You've never ever had a victim mentality though, as much as you've had a tough, you had a tough time, but it sounds like you never saw yourself as a victim. You just saw yourself as, I'm going to go figure out a way to get food.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I think when I was like at its worst, like with the abuse and everything, like, there's definitely nights where I was like, man, my life sucks. Like, I'm tired of living like this. Like, I just don't, why me type thing. But those thoughts never really served me. And like, I've always been the type of person that like, it's, I'm like, yeah, this is bad, but it's not that bad. Like there's worse positions I could be in. And so like, I always had like a futuristic mindset and a delayed gratification mindset. So like, for example, like with the food, even though like food was like my immediate go-to, like I would be, if there was an opportunity for me to get like maybe like trade in or do something to where like I'd have more food later, I would do it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like I would like, it was just food immediately was important, but like if I knew I could like delay it for more resources to get more food, like I was gonna do it. And I've always had like something that I was looking forward to. So when I was in high school, my thing was I wanted to go to the NBA. So I would grind my butt off, man. Every single day, I would go to school, and then I would go to the gym, and I'd practice basketball for hours until it was at the rec. Mm-hmm. And I'd be at the gym, like, as soon as school ended, I'd put on my headphones, and then I'd walk, like, a mile to the basketball gym, and I'm in the gym until, like, the place closed. So that was, like, I think 6 p.m., and then if it's warm enough outside, I'd still practice outside after 6 p.m. And then even during, on the weekends, the gym would close at like 10 o'clock at night. And then it would open at 8, but you could play basketball, I think, at like 11 or 12 or something. Yeah. And I'd be in there the whole time, grinding, because I was like, I'm going to go to the NBA. I'd be working hard. So like, yeah, my life sucked now, but I just imagine, I remember I used to visualize a lot. I'd be like, man, when I'm in the NBA, like, life is going to be good. Like, I'm going to have all these things. People are going to respect me. My family's going to finally respect me. I'm never going to lack for anything again. Because, I know how much those guys make. It wasn't just about the money. I was passionate about that because basketball was, like, my way of being away from, like, the tough times that I was in. Mm-hmm. So, like, I think, like, just having something to, like, look forward to in life and just being that optimistic about my future, even though like my present was so crappy, made it like so much easier to adopt the mindset of like victim who's the victim, this I can actually eventually be like the superhero. And then I'd watch a lot of TV. You watch like TV, all the superheroes had a crappy life, so I was like, I'm just one of them. I started attaching myself to things like that.
Yeah.
Where did you get the confidence, though, Jabbar? I mean, everyone, it sounds like, for the most part, was beating you down, including the people that should have loved you the most. So where did you get that inner confidence, that inner, like, positivity? Because I'm always amazed when you talk about your past because you're so confident and driven. Like, have you always been that way? Is it something that you learned? Is it a mindset shift? Where do you get the confidence? It sounds like, for a kid in your situation to say, I'm going to the NBA and put that much work in because you knew you were, like, how in the world did you come out of, where did you get that from? Because I can't imagine anyone telling you, Jabbar, you're so amazing at basketball, you're going to the NBA.
Everyone told me the opposite.
Right.
People tell me you suck so much at basketball, why do you think you're going to the NBA?
Right. So you clearly, it's like maybe you just always believed in yourself. It's amazing is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I really don't know what made me crazy enough to believe in myself. I think though, like, I just don't think, because I would always just think, like, when I was sad, because I'd go through times where I was very sad.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that ever came out of it, you know? There's nothing that ever served me by saying, man, like, I'm not going to NBA. Yeah. Like, if you really think about it, what would benefit you from saying, like, you want to do something, but you can't do it?
Yeah.
Like, what's the benefit? Like, so I think even at a young age, it just never made sense to me, possibly. And then also, like, the type of, like, I don't know, I always maybe have been a little bit of a narcissist. I felt like maybe this, like my life was like a movie and I was just the main character. So, like, all these things were supposed to happen to me, you know? Yeah. Like, I was just always like, you know, like, this is what happens to people who are meant to do, like, great things. Maybe I didn't think it, like, that exact way, but it was, like, something in my head made me think that I was special because of how bad of a time that I was having. You know? And so, like, that gave me confidence to know that eventually, like, this stuff will turn around. Yeah. And, like, I think, like, also with the combination of just, like, me, I remember being sad and thinking, like, this literally doesn't, like, I'm literally gaining nothing. I'm literally gaining not a thing from being sad about my life. And I remember, like, and I have all, like, basketball was my escape. You know, I played video games. I've always had, like, a super obsessive personality. So when I played, like, Roblox, for example, like, I was the best. I wasn't, like, an average Roblox player, no. Like, if I came onto that server to play on that game, like, I was killing everybody. So it's, like, always like that, like, you know, you have to be the best at what you do type of mentality.
Well, and I was fascinated just on the subject of confidence, and I'll stop, I promise, Chandler, but, like, I very proudly went and saw you at everything you spoke at Bigger Pockets. It was such an honor to be there with you. And you said something that really fascinated me when you were on stage the second time. And you said, I've purposely put myself in situations where I'm uncomfortable, and I'm very comfortable being uncomfortable. And it made me think about the day that you and I met. And you reached out to me I had never met you. And I was so impressed with your confidence just to reach out and go, hey, I'm Jabbar. I'm 19. I live in Savannah too. And I was like, we got to hang out. You know, like, I was just very drawn to you. But I loved when you said that. You said, I have purposely put myself in uncomfortable situations. And you attributed that to part of your success. And I thought, he's absolutely right. I've seen you do it. And again, that just takes so much confidence. I'm scared to walk in a room when I don't know anyone. And you've done it over and over and over. I'm sure you've been many times the only black guy in the room, the only teenager in the room, the only Marine in the room. You know, the list could go on. Like, I just cannot tell you how much I respect your confidence and your belief in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, as you know, no one's going to believe in you.
The soul, yeah.
Right. I just cannot compliment you enough on that. So you're amazing.
Thank you. And I think, like, for me, like, a lot of people would look at my past, and a lot of people look at their past too as, like, a disadvantage. Yeah. But, like, it's not that I always had to purposely make myself uncomfortable. Like, my life was just genuinely uncomfortable.
That's fair.
That is an advantage in itself. Like, I've already felt like this is way better. Me reaching out to you on Instagram is way better than me getting the crap beaten out of me at 2 a.m. at night, you know? Like, it's not like something that it's like so hard, you know? It's like when you put a Navy SEAL and you ask them to, like, I don't know, run a company. Like, running a company is much easier than having to be up in Iraq at 3 a.m. and you're not knowing if the enemy's going to catch you and blow your head off and you're never going to see anybody again. And you know what I'm saying? Like there's just, like, it's like you have to also have the perspective. So my perspective when it went into, like, for example, business and real estate investing was like, and even joining the military is like the hardest moments of my life have already just living wise, I feel like I've already passed. Yeah. And so a lot of people look at their life and they're like, man, I have all this going, and maybe they have less confidence. Mm-hmm. But I think, like, you should have blood. Like, you should look at people and be like, oh yeah, like, you haven't been through what I've gone through. Like, I just know you have. I can look at you. I see the way you talk. I see the way you move. I see the way you carry yourself. So, like, if you can do it and you can suffer yourself to be as successful as where you are and where you're at, that means I can do it too. Because I feel like I've had a way more difficult time than you, buddy. You know? It's like one of those things where it's like a lot of people look at people with disadvantaged lifestyles and they're like, oh, like, oh, poor you, poor woe's me. But really, you should look at them almost, if they really understand it properly, the same way you should look at like a trust fund baby who's had all the keys handed to him. Because that person, if they really understand like how powerful it is to have gone through extreme levels of adversity, like regular levels of adversity would be cake to them. You know, I can't tell you the amount of problems that I have that most people would freak out at, and I'm just completely calm. I'm just like, okay, well,
There's no way you're at the level where you are now that you haven't gone through stuff like that, because we're in the same business. I mean, I can imagine.
What most people wouldn't do is look, like you're seeing it as an advantage, and most people would never see that as an advantage. But I agree with that, and I like that mindset. But like what I try to do is like, I've worked in high school baseball and all that, and I see those kids with that kind of victim mindset. No, I can't do this. And I'm like, dude, I guess you can. And I can't seem to really like switch their mindset. And I'm like, I think that's what I was asking that one night. I was like, how do you like get these kids to like just switch their mindset? Because I was like, if you want to be a millionaire, you can, dude. Like, you can. I've seen it. And I just can't seem to switch their mindset. And that's what I was asking. I was like, what did you do to kind of like, but I was like, do some people just have it and some don't? Or like, because I'd like to help some kids out and try to switch their mindset, but I just can't get to them.
I don't know, man. It's really interesting because I believe like, I don't know. Every time I talk about things like this, my perspective changes, and like I have a different level of like experience that makes me say what I want to say. But in this season of my life right now, I really think you have to believe in yourself. Like, if you don't believe in yourself, that I think belief in yourself is probably like 80% of it, to be crazy enough to believe you can do it. So a lot of people have these limiting beliefs, and it's like, I can't do it. I can never be a millionaire. I can never be the type of person that can make $1 million. That's not me. But where does that come from? Like let's if you boil it down closely, like I've studied people, I've looked at people a lot, and I've seen how they live their lives and like start to make certain understandings of who they are based on how they live their life. So like every time you struggle to just wake up in the morning, you have 15 alarms and you miss all of them, for example, that's already starting you back with the confidence in yourself, because you're not going to be as confident in yourself to be a millionaire if you can't even be confident in yourself to wake up at 8 when you set 20 alarms to wake up at 8. Yeah. Then next, you tell yourself you're going to go to the gym, or you tell yourself you're going to study. You tell yourself you're going to stop watching porn. You tell yourself you're going to, do those dishes even like the small things, and then you never do it. You never do it. So then like it adds on to this character and this story that you're telling yourself and you're putting in your brain that like, I am not even capable of doing the things I tell myself to do. So for you to tell me, I could be a millionaire, like that sounds nice, man. But like, for me, man, I just don't see it. And even if they want to say like, huzzah, like, yeah, I can do it, internally, they still think back, subconsciously, like, you can't wake up to your alarm. And I'm not saying you have to wake up to your alarm to be a millionaire, but like, there's things in your life that possibly you need to start working on first. Because I notice a lot of people that adopt the mindset quickly are people who are starting to believe in themselves. And that belief in themselves comes from they have proven to themselves, logically or illogically, that they're a person capable of achieving things. And when you have that belief in yourself that you're a person capable of achieving things, then like when some dude tells you about all these things that they're doing with real estate and like how you can do it too, you're just more likely to believe in yourself and to follow that trend and switch your mindset to doing it versus the person that you tell that same thing to, and they literally have so many examples in their own life and they've already written this story to them that they're not capable of doing anything because they're not even capable of washing their car. They're not capable of doing, like, they don't have any examples in their own life to prove to themselves that they're a capable of achievement. Yeah.
Would you say they're allowing, I see it myself, but it's really as a question, but do you see people where they're choosing small failures every day and then wondering why they're having big failures, but really what they're doing is quitting on themselves, like you said, with the alarm clock, with working out, with their diet, with all the minutia. And if you're not disciplined in those small things, it's very difficult disciplined in these large things such as saving money, buying assets, dealing with huge problems, handling lending. Is that kind of a good summation of what you're saying?
I think that's exactly it. You put it better than I did. Like that's it. Like if you are not capable of the small things to yourself, right? Because you can be delusional. There's people who are delulu out here, and they can not be capable of small things, and they can still be incredibly successful because they've written some story in their head that they're capable of achieving things, and that's great. Mm-hmm. Or maybe even being a millionaire is one of those small things that it's like, maybe I'm gonna not take my diet seriously. Maybe I'm not even gonna wake up on time. Maybe I'm not gonna do these things. But this money saving thing, I got it. Yeah. You know? And for them, like that works. You know, it all depends on the individual. But I think overall, like you were saying, that's like great. The small things are just a lot more important for you to build that story of being capable of achieving, so you can switch your mindset to the belief that you can do something as massive, like globally, as becoming a millionaire. Because only 1% of people in the world are millionaires. Yeah. You know, America has started to turn into this culture of like, oh, this is a small achievement, and like to extent and perspectives is true. But then when you look at it from a big outward lens, you realize like, one, you are in the most advanced position to do it, but then two, also like the accomplishment of being, let's say, a millionaire, even or maybe making your first 100K is a huge accomplishment because just globally. Like you are in like such a top tier echelon level of economical success that most people will never see in their lifetime statistically.
Mm-hmm. Very true. So what was the turning point? You obviously grew up in tough times. You know, you mainly were focused on food. So at what point in your life did you figure out the difference between an asset and a liability?
So when I was 15, this is a good question. When I was 15, actually, I've never even told this story. When I was 14, that kid that was making passive income off my behind with the mail, I knew he was doing like these things called stocks. So I was like, what is this like stock thing you're doing, man? He's like, this is the way you can make money. You know, when I hear money, at that point, when I heard money, the first thing I was like, oh, I can buy all these food, all these clothes. Like, I'm thinking like big. I'm thinking huge. But he's like doing this stock thing. I was like, okay, so you buy Tesla? You own Tesla? You own Microsoft? So like he doesn't realize this. We're friends on Snapchat, and like he'll text me from time to time because I don't know his perspective on the whole thing. But like he influenced my life a bunch because like I wanted to be like him for a while. I wanted to make passive income off the neighborhood kid, and so. He was doing these stock things, but I didn't understand. I asked him questions, but I was like, okay, one day I'll do this stock thing because I know that's a good way to make money. That was the first time I ever heard of like what's a stock. Is when like seeing him talk about he's invested in Netflix and invested in Apple and Under Armour, I remember, and Nike. I was like, oh, you can make money and like I'm thinking you can make a bunch of millions of dollars or some crazy stuff. So I was like, man, when I'm older or something, I'll invest in stocks. So that thought was in my head. Mm-hmm. So I was a huge hardcore basketball player. Yeah, always working out. This time I'm in Texas. So when I got removed from my home in Maryland, living with my dad, food was never an issue. I never lacked for food. I never lacked for clothes. Like I got that lucky opportunity. I'm very grateful for to where like lacking from those two departments was no longer like something. I was in that survival for those things. Mm-hmm. So I was hardcore basketball in school because I was like, I'm going to be an NBA player. I'm going to accomplish this goal and do what I said I was going to do. So 5 a.m. workouts to 8 a.m., go to school, run stairs for 30 minutes. Then I skip class to go practice my shooting form. Then I'd have practice after school from like 2:45, and I'd be in the gym from 2:45 to like 6 p.m. And then I'd go home, and if I didn't have a bunch of homework, I was playing outside. If there's people outside, like with the old heads on the street, like with them on the basketball hoop. Mm-hmm. So I was playing basketball for several, like almost like a full-time job. Mm-hmm. And like that's how seriously I took it. I finally made the varsity basketball team, rode the bench, and it was really a mentality thing. I believe I was good enough, but my confidence in my basketball skills was affected by all the people who were constantly telling me how bad I was. And basketball is more mental than anything. So when I was proving to myself how bad I was by not scoring against those guys, I kind of turned into that player that couldn't. Oh man, I wish I could go back there now because now I know what the secret was all along. Because I beat these kids 1-on-1.
Yeah,
But
you would.
so then my dad, one day I got a church assignment to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and by my pastor. And I'm Nigerian, so in the Nigerian community, being like when the pastor tells you to do something, it's almost like God told you to do something, you know? So like, so my pastor gave me an assignment. I'm like, man, it's not about basketball. I'm not doing this trap. And so my dad, like, I remember called me into his room, fiery. He had my 2 prized possessions, my Wilson basketballs. I'll never forget this day, bro. And he had my and he looked at me. He was pissed. He was like, "You'll never play basketball again." Got a big knife. Pulled out a knife. I'm looking. I'm like, "There's no way." And he broke my heart. Pop, pop. Basketball's gone, bro. And I'm like thinking in my head, like I wanted to cry. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I might have cried. I think this was at a time period where I was more emotional in that department. So I think I cried. And like he handed me Rich Dad Poor Dad, he read it, and he was mad that I didn't, listen to,
God.
past God, and do this assignment that God gave me.
But Jabbar, in a way, that was God.
Yeah, it was.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was.
That's crazy.
I look back at the moment and like my dad thinks like I hate him or something for it, but I'm grateful for being super hard on me because I needed that at that time. Because I was still wayward. Like I wasn't just because like I was a struggling kid. I was also a bad kid. I was always getting in trouble and things like that. And so he did that. And so I went to my room and I read it. But because this was a time where he would say, you don't listen to my rules. You get out of my house. And get out of his house means I go back to Maryland and I go back to like I go like into the system. I have to go to foster care. So I didn't want to do that. So I read the book. And I read it from cover to cover that same night. I read the entire thing. I wrote a book report on it. I was like, man, this is a good book.
Yeah.
This is this asset versus liabilities, understanding real estate, understanding stocks, understanding what Rich Dad did and what Poor Dad did. I can't really even tell you all the things about the book, but I just remember like the epiphany in my head to know like, like I really should take this very seriously because being rich isn't being like I always wanted to have an abundance of wealth. And this book is basically giving me the blueprint for how to think to get there. So I was like, man, when I make money, like I'm a like strategically be very intentional about putting my money towards assets.
This is the conclusion of part 1 of our interview with Jabbar Adesada. Chandler and I really enjoyed spending time with him. This interview did go long, and we have decided to cut it up into multiple segments, just so we didn't have to cut out any of the great wisdom that Jabbar was sharing. Please join us next time for part 2 of this series, and I know that you'll really enjoy it.